50 States of Terror may include content unsuitable for young audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Content warnings will be included in the show notes. Hello, world. It's me, your host, Anthony Diaz, and welcome to another episode of 50 States of Terror. As you can already tell, this is a little weird episode, a little out of the ordinary. You see, I am not in front of my laptop and talking to a computer. I am sitting in my car with the AC on and talking to you, because this episode is going to be a little more personal, because we're talking about mental health awareness. You see, and I didn't want to be in front of a computer talking to a microphone, because I think that there is some type of entertainment aspect in it that I don't think it would come off as disingenuous, but like more of a it wouldn't feel weird. It wouldn't feel right, or it wouldn't feel real. So I decided, when and where can I do it? So I thought maybe I could just be in my garage and record it there. But then where do I have the most personal and zero distractions? Well, when I'm in my car, waiting in line to pick up our son. So that's what I'm doing. And before this, I had this well thought out plan of attack on this, so to speak. I was going to do this semi-comical intro, this upbeat, with an upbeat intro, and see, even right now, my thoughts are escaping me. But then I decided no, because that I don't want to take away from the fact of what we're going to talk about today. So again, I am sitting in my car, recording this on my phone, which hopefully I'll be able to upload into Adobe and do all the cool, edits and release this episode. I had originally thought I was going to be able to do this much earlier in the month. And I had planned on hopefully inviting back our good friend, Dr. Anthony Zocolillo, who did the episode last year with Kaylee. And if you haven't heard that episode, it is a wonderful, wonderful episode, and you should all do yourself a favor and listen to it. But, we had trips planned. I got sick, and some changes are happening around here. I honestly felt like if I was going to do this, then I would need a little more time to prep. So I waited, and then I came up with this. I came up with just a personal message and a personal conversation. Because what this feels like is this feels like I'm talking to a friend. I'm talking to someone on the other line on the phone. There's no production value of me talking to the microphone, because I'm trying to entertain and I'm trying to get people to listen to the episode. No, this is just me talking to my friends. And when I was thinking about the topics, how to bring this up, how to make awareness of mental health. Well, I guess the only way to do that is to tell, a couple personal stories. You see, growing up, I was never introduced to mental health or taking care of oneself in that manner. I did grow up in a Catholic household. So if there was anything going on, there was this attitude that if you were feeling down, depressed, anxious, or what have you, while in school, I can maybe talk to a counselor. I never did. But the closest confidant that we were almost expected to go to was a priest, the man in the cloth. And oftentimes it was, well, to me, a little beneficial. Not in the response that I was getting, but just the fact that I was actually talking to somebody about what was going on. And I didn't start doing that until late in years, because growing up, we were just told to deal with it. This weird feeling that you might have. And I couldn't label it. I didn't know what it was. Depression, anxiety, imposter syndrome, because it's a real thing that teenagers and young adults go through. Now more than ever, because growing up in high school in the mid-90s is way different from growing up in high school today. And the old cliche is, well, in my day, I didn't have cell phones and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and these kids do. And their lives are posted all the time. And that fear of being accepted is there all the time. Now, I may tell myself that at the time that I just didn't give a shit. And I kind of didn't. I wasn't trying to be the most popular kid in school. I was just trying to be me for what I like to do. And it wasn't until I was much, much older and realized that all of these negative feelings that I was feeling about myself were A, valid, and B, needed to be hashed out. After high school, I made my attempt to go to college and had my first real shock of what depression and anxiety looked like. And at the time, I had people to talk to, and 9 times out of 10, just talking about it helped me logically realize that I was either in my own head, I was getting down on myself because I was either rejected or disappointed, or nothing was fitting into place. And then 9/11 happened. I was a freshman in college, well, sophomore in college, and the real anxiety of what was happening in the world around me finally kicked in, because I was living in the moment almost all the time. I wasn't too concerned about world affairs because it didn't affect me at all. I was too busy worrying about how I was going to try to get a 12-pack of beer and where we were going to party at. I wasn't worrying about these world issues. And I think that's when I became aware of how everything around affects your health, specifically your mental health, because it was truly a scary time. Now, I don't know how old you listeners are, but for me, I was at that age of complete awareness, and a switch went off. That's when I was more involved in world economics, world issues, politics. And then I started to figure out how the actual world works, which made me even more depressed. And I was sad. I was sad at the time too, because I allowed myself to live in this small little bubble. Like, if I just kept my nose down and if I just kept doing what I was told, go to work, get money, and do all of these things that you're supposed to do, then everything around me would just be fine. I can just ignore it, kind of. But then something happened. When 9/11 hit and my father, who at the time was still active duty military, left, I had this sense of I needed to do something as well. So I joined the military. Specifically, I joined the Marines. Now, military mental health is a beast all in itself. Mainly because you had a job to do and you're expected to do it all the time with any outcome whatsoever. Any major emotional outcome, you just kept on doing what you're supposed to do because that's your mission. That's what you're supposed to do. You know, when you're in your early 20s and you are hearing KIAs coming in and you're hoping that none of them are your friends, it starts to take its toll. Now, me personally, I am not a combat veteran. And even that in itself, I've found that there's a lot of stigma behind that. Like, you're almost shunned from other veterans who are combat vets. But I digress. That's a whole different topic. So, spending 5 years in the military, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about life, and you become this well-oiled machine of a person that is expected to make decisions all the time, on the spot, right or wrong. You just have to make a choice. And I think towards the end of my enlistment is when I started to feel that the pressure itself and the atmosphere was just getting a little bit too much. You know, I was not getting, you know, promotions. I wasn't getting my way in a lot of things, because I was kind of like a workaholic, which I'll explain later too, like how work affects, you know, me personally and how I deal with mental health. But you know what? I'll just say it right now. I find myself diving into work to get away from issues that are occurring, even when it's work that is causing the issues. It's always been a way to just kind of distract myself. But I digress. So, going back to the military, you know, it was stressful. It was hard, but you know, I did it. And I did it on the premise of thinking that I was doing the right thing at the time. And also with this mentality that I felt like it was something that I was supposed to do. You know, growing up, there is this blueprint that we followed, that we had to follow to make sure that we were going to be okay for the rest of our lives. School, college, or military, work, retire, done. That's it. You know, and then finding out that all that is a lie, well, I mean, that does also play into the whole, you know, depression and anxiety thing about what's going on in our society. But I knew that I had some issues of depression and anxiety leaving the military. Now, whether or not I had these things before and they were just exacerbated during the military, I don't know. But trying to look for help after my military service is when I started to find out that everything about this whole spectrum of military, and I'm sorry, not military, but mental health is just completely broken. One thing in particular is when I was already out, and the culture within the culture within the military as a whole is, you know, you don't talk to Doc about what's going on in your head. You know, what you do is you try to figure out a way to deal it with yourself. Go to the gym, go for a run, and of course, drink a lot of alcohol. So I found myself, while in the military, being able to put away a case of beer on any day, just drink after work until I fell asleep, just so I can feel better, and wake up at like 4:30, 4:45, get in PT formation, go do a 10-mile run, come back, go to work, and fight off depression and fight off anxiety and fight off all these things. Gym, running, physical activity, and drink a shit ton of beer. Now, it wasn't until I got out when I realized that maybe this wasn't very healthy. So I found myself getting angry and very short-tempered on how things were run outside of the military. Say what you will about military, but if something needed to be done, it was done. If there was an issue, it was handled. Because the bigger picture meant more than a stupid, quarrel between two people. And that's how it was ran. That's what I was used to. So after the military, I used my GI Bill and I went to school. And I remember sitting in college classes being relatively much older than the majority of the people there. And it got to me how just disrespectful a lot of people were. But then I realized they weren't being disrespectful, they were being open-minded. Now, people in class who were, causing a ruckus and fuss during class, okay, those people were being dicks. But a lot of these kids were questioning a lot about life and about society and the way things were ran, and questioning injustices and things like that. And then while I was in college, again, I found myself battling depression and anxiety, and I was trying to find like-minded people. So I started joining organizations. I started joining the Student Veterans of America. I was going to VFW meetings, American Legion meetings, and I again found myself in this kind of a spiral that before I can just work it out with my Marines, but that wasn't the case. I was alone. So I attempted to reach out to the VA, because that's where you're supposed to go, right? My first attempt to see somebody at the VA, they told me it was going to be like 6 months until I get an appointment. If I needed to talk to somebody, to reach out to the crisis hotline, I wasn't gonna reach out to the crisis hotline. I just wanted to talk to somebody real quick. I wasn't going to commit suicide or anything. I didn't think that way. Then I started to actually think that way. Because it was to me, while everything around me was starting just to get overwhelming and a little bit too much. So when I did try to talk to somebody, there was nobody there to listen to. And that's when I relied a lot on my friends and my family. And I'm very grateful and lucky to have that. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't have that ability to have an outlet like that. And then I got, started dating, and then my then girlfriend became my fiance, and then became my wife, and then learning more about mental health through her. And what's funny is I learned more about mental health and how to treat it and how to help on my own with her on TikTok videos than I did talking to somebody. And it's just a weird feeling. Now, that doesn't mean that I never got to talk to somebody. When I did finally get to talk to people, it helped tremendously. But I also feel like I was able to do that because I had, insurance. I can afford insurance, and I was able to talk to people about what was going on. And a lot of people don't have that ability to. So yeah, mental health is one of those things that it's overlooked too much. In my opinion, it is. Now it isn't though. See, beforehand I thought it was overlooked, but now it's not, because to tell you the truth, I'm not joking. Like the amount of education I have gotten from TikTok videos is astonishing. The amount of education that I have received about depression, anxiety, ADHD, RSD, rejection disorder, all of these things that I did not know 100% about, that at one point I was like, just deal with it. Now I'm seeing how people are coping with it, and how they're dealing with it, and how they're diagnosed, and ways to help. TikTok videos. It's it's kind of a curse and a blessing. Curse in a way that you're glued to videos trying to get information, but a blessing because people are actually like putting themselves out there and talking about it. Because I guarantee you, before this, nobody was. And if they were, sometimes they were branded as something, which is horrible. But yeah, this is random babblings from a wannabe podcast host. But look, there are avenues out there. There are people who are willing to listen. I personally have had a number of friends who, outside military service, felt like the only way to feel better was to end their life. And I regret that I didn't talk to them, and I regret that I never reached out on social media to say hi before they did it. And how it came up was equally disturbing and a punch in the gut. Random messages come up from old friends, and we just start talking, and like, hey, have you heard from so-and-so? And then a little bit of silence, and then they tell you. And it's like, shit. Then you feel anger because they're friends. Why didn't they talk? Why didn't they come text me or message me on Facebook or Instagram or something? But then you just have to realize that sometimes they just can't talk, and you wish they would. You wish they would have. But there are people out there who will listen. I'll put some resources in the show notes too. But off the top of my head, I know there's 988. That's a hotline. NAMI. I just heard about NAMI yesterday. The National Alliance on Mental Illness, the ADAA, the Trevor Project. There's some really good people out there who are willing to listen. So yeah, thank you for listening. Like I said, I really didn't know how this was gonna go. I was just gonna wing it and see what happens. If you're feeling down, depressed, anxious, angry, just talk to somebody. I know it's easier said than done, because believe me, it takes a lot of gut to open up and talk. But I'm learning that you have to do it, because keeping all that shit inside, man, that it eats at you, and it only makes it worse. So talk to somebody. Yeah, even if it's only just for a minute, just open up. All right, guys, later. This has been an episode of 50 States of Terror, brought to you by your host, Anthony Diaz. You can find the show on Facebook and Instagram at 50 States of Terror. On Twitter, you can find the show at 50 States Terror, without the of, because of the character limitations. You can also find the show on TikTok, 50 SOT Podcast. Email at the50sot@gmail.com. That's the 50SOT@gmail.com. And of course, if you want to support the show, please, you may at patreon.com/50 States of Terror. Thank you, and happy hunting. Later.